Logan Sergeant got yanked from his car in Australia by the Williams F1 team after Alex Albon totaled his chassis in free practice. Team Principal James Vowels said it was the hardest decision he has ever had to make, but despite 2 retirements ahead of him, Alex Albon wasn't able to repay Vowels' faith. Logan Sergeant is going to continue to suffer for Albon's mistake this week, but with a number of teams upgrading their cars, it's unlikely that Alex will be scoring points anyway. Today, I'm going to check out Williams' decision that has totally screwed Logan Sergeant and look at all the upgrades that are going to be on the grid in Japan. So, let's get started. In 2014, a fresh-faced Max Verstappen logged his first mileage on a Grand Prix weekend in free practice for Formula One's Japanese Grand Prix. It wasn't long after that Toro Rosso announced he would be driving full-time for them in 2015. The bombshell move prompted swift criticism from analysts and competitors up and down the paddock. We were declared completely crazy by just about everyone and had all sorts of things thrown at us, said Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko. The FIA was even stupid enough to change the whole licensing system so that no one could debut so young again. 10 years on, Max is continuing to prove that the faith placed in him as the youngest ever person to participate in an F1 race weekend, just 17 years and 3 days old, was the right choice by Red Bull. One driver who needs a little faith placing in him this weekend though is Logan Sergeant. With the team not having built up a spare chassis, Albon's FP1 shunt last time out at Melbourne's Albert Park circuit meant Williams was forced to enter only one car from Saturday onwards, while the damaged FW46 was flown back to the UK for initial investigation and repairs. To maximise its chances of scoring points in the ultra-competitive midfield, Williams withdrew Sergeant from the event so it could place Albon in the American's car. That choice was described by team boss James Vowels as the hardest decision he'd had to make, while he also branded the situation as unacceptable in modern-day F1. Vowels has been revolutionizing how things work behind the scenes at the Williams team, and a lack of a spare chassis was seen as a consequence of that. However, some investigating by Will Buxton has brought to light that Williams aren't the only team lacking an extra chassis. A number of teams have completely rebuilt their cars over the winter, and with long lead times for huge parts like the chassis, the factories are still playing catch-up. In Williams' case, they won't have a spare ready until Miami at the start of May. The chassis has been repaired and is ready for the Japanese Grand Prix, and the FIA will have checked to make sure it meets all their safety standards, but Williams will still be worried about a repeat of the accident in Australia. After just missing out on points in Australia, full focus is now on Japan for Williams, with Albon praising the work that the team have put in to repair the damaged chassis. Not that he'll be the one driving it. Sergeant will remain in the repaired ex-Albon car this weekend, given the time constraints of refitting both chassis to accommodate another driver change. "It's the repaired one," said Sergeant when asked which car he'll run this weekend. Just because the workload to switch the cars back over would just be far too much for the mechanics. But the chassis repair went better than expected. The repaired chassis doesn't come without a negative consequence though, and it is one that Williams have decided that Logan should bear. The repair job has added 100 grams of weight to the chassis, which will obviously cost lap time, but also due to where the damage was, it will also unbalance the car slightly, requiring Logan and his engineers to work out a new setup. Team Principal James Vowels says the chassis damage was to a suspension insert. Weight will need to be added to the opposing suspension insert to rebalance the two sides, and then the back and the front of the car will be out of balance due to the change in the center of gravity. Logan is going to have to do plenty of playing with setups in free practice to find a solution he's happy with. With a wet weekend expected in Japan, there is a chance of another sizable accident for one of the Williams drivers. Logan said that Williams has not openly discussed how it will handle a similar incident in Japan while it awaits the completion of a spare car. However, the lack of a standby car will not alter his driving. It's, again, a situation we had to deal with through the first 3 races. We went to Saudi with the same situation, and of course it's one of those things that you have to be careful. But at the same time, you can't be. It's Formula One. If you're careful, you're nowhere. So it's really not even a question. You have to be committed, confident, and hope nothing goes wrong. Hopefully, Williams won't have to handle another single chassis situation at any point this weekend as they wait for Miami to get their spare. But while Williams are waiting for parts to arrive, a number of teams have been able to manufacture and ship upgrades ready for this weekend's Grand Prix. A much-anticipated Red Bull upgrade has arrived. There was plenty of speculation about whether they would shrink their side pods even further as the calendar moved to colder climates, which require less cooling, but that hasn't been the case. Thanks to Albert Fabregas' always excellent pit lane photography, we now know that they've actually added more side pod, not taken some away. In addition to their vertical and horizontal intakes where the traditional side pod intakes are, and the less traditional shoulder intakes that got so much attention at preseason testing, Red Bull have added a fourth air intake to their cooling structure. The new intake sits just below where the halo blends into the rest of the car, by the driver's ears. They've also removed the air outlet from halfway along those shoulder cannons. The reprofiled upper section of the side pod will help improve the flow to the rear of the car, maximizing the performance of the diffuser, which is vital to increasing the downforce generated by the underfloor. Removing those air outlets halfway along the side of the car is possible because of the cooler weather in Japan, meaning the engine doesn't need as much cooling as it did in the opening 3 races. Their removal will clean up the airflow around that section of the car and behind it, improving the aero performance of everything at the rear end. And just having a second and third intake at the front of the car was revolutionary enough, but by adding a fourth, Red Bull is showing that they have discovered something that Adrian Newey is very happy about. And considering how strong the Red Bull car is, it wouldn't be a surprise if this is the way that F1 cars go in the future. The RB20 could be a car talked about for years to come as a revolutionary in F1 history. Red Bull are far from the only team reprofiling their side pods and cooling for the colder climate of Japan though. Aston Martin and Alpine have confirmed that they will have new parts at Suzuka. The AMR24 has some newly reprofiled side pods which feature an interesting shelf on the outer shoulder of the structure to help channel the air where the team wants it to be. Alpine are on a strict weight loss program to try and find a competitive edge that has completely gone this year. They'll also have a new front wing for the race as they aim to lift themselves off the bottom of the Constructors' Championship table. Sauber had said that they would have fixes for their disastrous pit stop problem for the Japanese Grand Prix, but that's no longer the case. The team suffered from cross-threaded wheel nuts on the front left corner in each of the first 3 Grand Prix of the season, with a delay suffered by Valtteri Bottas at the first round of pit stops in Australia costing him almost half a minute and consequently throwing out a likely points finish. Bottas had also endured a lengthy delay in the Bahrain season opener, with teammate Zhou Guanyu getting screwed in Saudi Arabia. The problem is understood to be related to the lightweight material used in the new for 2024 wheel nuts that are part of the team's winter investment in equipment and components designed to improve pit stop times. Clearly, the money was poorly invested, and with the fix in Australia not being successful, the team are now saying that they're going to have to wait until the European leg of the season to resolve the problem, meaning at least 3 more races of pain for Valtteri and Zhou. What do you think about Red Bull's new side pods? And are Williams going to come unstuck with their chassis issues? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.